Good evening, or good morning, depending on where you are. This is the Tibet Center, Kunchal Tarduling from South Orange, New Jersey. And the topic tonight, as usual, is 3 principal aspects of the path. Before I start with the prayers, if you're interested in the status of Nikki and Rinpoche, go to the Tibet Center's website. Nicholas Vreeland, Venerable Nicholas Vreeland, the abbot of Rato Monastery, downloaded a 6-7 minute video that will give you all you want to know about what's going on in India. Now we'll start with the prayer for the spread of the teaching. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious 3 precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teaching flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the 5 skandhas and their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the 5 skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge, and since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisattva. O Shariputra, this is how Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva of Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. So now, refuge and Bodhisattva vow. Very important these days. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. So the three topics that are talked about in this text, the three principal aspects of the path are renunciation, bodhicitta, and of course right view. The events around us in the whole world, not just in our countries, in the world now, really put into stark, what's the word? Stark reality, yeah. The need for refuge, for renunciation, for bodhicitta. Of course, the right view we'll discuss later. You go for refuge, as we said before, out of faith and fear. Faith in the world that we see around us, the cyclic existence, the world of cyclic existence projected by those with samsaric minds. There's no refuge there. There's no certainty there. That's certainly glaringly obvious now. With that in mind, we use the current events to stir up our practice, to motivate us to practice more. This world doesn't have anything in it that you could really rely on. No place to take refuge. You look at the beings that are suffering and you realize, how am I going to help them? If you have that kind of a heart, which you should develop, this is the Mahayana, how are you going to help them? You decide to become a Buddha, you realize that after investigation, that's the only way to actually fulfill all their needs eternally, not just materially. And to do that, you have to get out of samsara. You have to develop yourselves to your full potential, full evolvement. For that, you need the understanding of reality itself, not our projected reality. Sometimes there was an argument about, should we call it reality or actuality, whatever. What we see isn't really what's there. And why is that a problem? Because that's the root of all suffering. So these three elements are very, very important. And we can apply the current conditions now to help us, to motivate us to practice more. It's very real. These things are not theoretical, and they work. So we've discussed renunciation, we've discussed bodhicitta, and now the last part, the correct view. It starts with the verse, if you do not have the wisdom realizing the way things are. I know how things are. No. Well, he's saying, no, you don't. It's very simple. Even though you have developed the thought definitely to leave cyclic existence and the altruistic intention, the bodhicitta, whatever you want to call it, the root of cyclic existence cannot be cut. Therefore, work at the means of realizing dependent arising. He doesn't say work at the means of realizing emptiness. He says dependent arising for many reasons, which will become clearer as we study the text. So the correct view, this is His Holiness is saying, the profound view of the middle way, this is rather as Geshe Sonam mentioned, the profound view of the middle way is extremely hard to find. It's subtle. There are different gradations of understanding it. Buddha taught different presentations of it. We call them 4 different schools, or schools of tenets, not to be confused with the sects in Tibetan Buddhism, schools of tenets, where they present a gradually subtler and subtler viewpoint of the way things really are. Why? Because it's easy to train your mind that way. Buddha always taught to the mindset of the audience. Certain people needed a certain presentation, okay. He taught in such a way that they understood some things and other things were bringing them closer to the next more subtle view, and on and on and on. There's 4 main schools, and the highest, 4th school divides into 2, and we'll talk about that later. So the profound view of the middle way, Madhyamika, is extremely hard to find. If we misunderstand, mistaking the lack of inherent existence to mean non-existence, we plunge into an abyss of nihilism, which endangers our future, since this era encourages us to act irresponsibly. When you hear no form, no feeling, no this, it doesn't mean no, it means no inherent. What do you mean by inherent? Something that sets itself up, something that exists without any help from anything. Impossible, there's nothing like that. But that's the way we reflexively see everything, including the thoughts in our minds. So in our own minds, we have to work around this. So people hear that, no, so I can do whatever I want. There's no form there. That's wrong. That encourages you to do acts that'll cause you trouble, because remember, cause and effect are always, the laws of cause and effect are always ongoing. They're always there. Something positive gets you something, a positive action gets you a positive result, and negative action, negative result. Okay. So now he's saying only someone who has thought profoundly about what the absence of intrinsic existence is another word for inherent existence. Don't get caught in the weeds of all these terms. Just let it ride for a while. You come back and study it. You'll understand it. The absence of intrinsic existence means, about what the absence of intrinsic existence means, could come to the conclusion that it refers to total non-existence. No. There is little risk of that for most of us. He's giving us a little nudge. Since we do not give much thought to how things exist anyway, and cling firmly to their, quote, true existence. The way I see it, that's the way it is. Yeah. Familiarity with philosophy of the middle way may make us adept at using its terminology. Phrases like empty of inherent existence or not truly existent roll glibly off our tongues, while actually we assent and hold fast to the objective and independent existence of things. You'll hear the word objective reality a lot, something that also doesn't exist. At present, we cannot distinguish between existence and true existence, nor between lack of inherent existence and non-existence, except verbally. So you have to understand the meaning, not just the words and toss them around. And the meaning is subtle. You have to sit on it. But first, you have to scope it out, get the bare outline. So there are 4 systems of philosophical tenets in Buddhism, which significantly, in other words, superficially rather, appear to contradict each other, but which actually lead to progressively subtler levels of understanding. One says there's this, one says there's that, but they're training the mind to get more and more subtle, more and more precise about what the final nature of reality is. It's not something that just pops up naturally. If I just sit there like this, it'll all come to me. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. You can have a calm mind. You can be spaced out. Very nice. You're not going to break the bond of cyclic existence. You're not going to be free. You have to do some analytical work. So these systems of thought, with their graduations of subtlety, represent the various approaches the Buddha used to teach about different levels of reality, those at different levels of understanding. We could go through the 4 schools overview. I don't know. The Vaibhashika and all of these, but I think that's a little bit too heavy for a talk like this. Maybe we'll do that in the future, but it's better in the classroom when you could write something on the board. About these things, His Holiness says the selflessness that is accepted by all 4 schools is the lack of a self-supporting or self-sufficient person. Everyone agrees on that. So what does he mean by that? Selflessness, by the way, is a term you're going to have to get used to when they say the self of an object. When we hear self, we think person. We'll define selflessness later on in this talk, but right now, His Holiness says, the selflessness that is accepted by all 4 schools is the lack of a self-supporting or self-sufficient person. Meaning what? Meaning there is no person who is completely independent of the mental and physical aggregates. There's no person that is independent of a mind and body. What? Think about it. If you view the mental and physical aggregates as the subject to be controlled and the person as the controller, this automatically comes to us. And if you view this controller, a person, as something completely independent of these things, I control my body, I control my mind, the eyes, somewhere, where is it controlling? That if you think that way, you are maintaining a false view of the existence of a substantially self-supporting person. All 4 tenet schools accept that there is no such person, independent of her physical and mental aggregates. This understanding weakens our strong yearning for the person, the enjoyer of happiness and suffering, to be something solid. But it seems that it is not very effective in weakening the attachment, anger, and so on that is generated by observing other objects of enjoyment. And he talks about, if the object of enjoyment, he's talking about this is very clever. You cling to things in a certain way when you consider them mine. So he says, if the object of enjoyment doesn't belong to you, then you may not have a very strong sense of an independent, self-supporting person. But if you possess something, then that feeling is stronger because of the feeling of mine, the feeling of possessing a thing. You generate a very strong sense of the person to whom it belongs. My watch, my car, my girlfriend, whatever, hey, mine. Such a person is called a substantially self-sufficient person. A person who thinks that way, this is now mine, is what they call a substantially self-sufficient person. If you talk about the non-existence of such a substantially self-sufficient person to people who have a strong sense of the existence of such a person, it will help them reduce their attachment to their possessions. So, when we study the higher schools, His Holiness goes on, we find subtle explanations of the selflessness, not only of persons, but of phenomena, things, whatever, including the aggregates, they're called phenomena. When we relate to different objects of enjoyment, such as form and sound, they appear to us, owing to the awakening of imprints on our consciousness, owing to the awakening of imprints on our consciousness. This is the mind-only school. They're trying to teach you that you shouldn't be attached to things in the external world because they're really just projections of your mind. That's one way of weakening attachments to outer things. In other words, all phenomena of the nature of the mind and do not have any external existence. This is one explanation of emptiness and a means to reduce the objects of enjoyment. It is not the final view of emptiness. It is a technique to just quiet the mind down, because a mind that's running after this and that is in no position to understand the subtle view of reality. So it's a progressive process of getting rid of all this baggage, getting rid of all these afflictions, all this turmoil in the mind, all these false turns that you make left and right. The next school, the higher school, middle way explanation is that no phenomena, whether the person, the enjoyer, or the object of enjoyment, exist inherently from their own side, another synonym for inherently, because they are merely designated by thought. Now this theme, the theme designated by thought, we're going to carry on the whole lecture now, so think about it. Sometimes attributed by thought, named, after the thought sees it, puts a name on it. Thought designates name, and then phenomena comes into being. What? So then I could just say something, it's going to appear? I don't think so. It means something else by it. So phenomena do not have an existence from their own side other than their being designated by the terms and thoughts of the mind. All phenomena have their own character and their own nature, but these characteristics of specific phenomena exist independence on something else. They do not have a specific mode of existence from their own side. That sort of breaks the ice. Now you should think this way a little bit. Things don't exist from their own side. We have a lot to say about the power of these objects, our own minds. As the mind gets more and more refined, things are going to look different, they say. So, now the line here, if you do not have the wisdom, or sometimes without the wisdom, there's different translations. There's 2 of them up on our website, by the way. The latter one that went on lately is from Tsongkhapa. This one is Jeffrey Hopkins. They're somewhat similar. Whatever you like, you use that. And there's other translations in the various texts that I'm using. The Essence of Tsongkhapa's Teachings, the same text we've always used. Geshe Sonon Rinpoche's text, and the Pabanka commentary by Geshe Tarshan and Michael Roach, translated by Michael Roach. So, without the wisdom, what does this mean? This verse explains the need to generate this wisdom, realizing the nature of emptiness. So there's various kinds of wisdom. This is His Holiness on page 64 of Essential Teachings of Tsongkhapa. So there's wisdom that understands conventional phenomena such as the sciences, etc. But then there's the wisdom understanding the ultimate real nature of some phenomena, or their actual mode of being, how they really are. Sometimes they get their ontological status. You don't have to use those words. If you do not possess wisdom realizing the ultimate mode of existence, no matter how strong your determination to be free or your aspiration for enlightenment may be, you will not be able to shift your conception of true existence, the root cause of cyclic existence. That's why we go crazy about studying this. It's the root cause of cyclic existence, samsara, whatever you want to call it, this prison that we're all in. Comfortable rut, sometimes not. Therefore, you should make an effort to realize dependent arising. He uses the word dependent arising all the time. Common explanations of the meaning of dependent arising, such as dependent arising on cause and effect, are accepted by all Buddhist traditions. Yes, you plant the seed, it gives you this flower, fine. Cause and effect, I got it. I'm happy with that. Right. But this verse refers to a subtle dependent arising, something coming into existence in dependence on its parts. What? Yes, on its parts. In other words, these are conditions, relations in which particular effects or phenomena arise merely in dependence on a particular cause and conditions. There are, rather, condition relations in which particular effects or phenomena arise merely in dependence on a particular cause and condition. Another meaning of dependent arising is the existence of things relative to others. For example, when we talk about a part of a whole body, we call it a part in relation to the whole body. Oh, that's what they mean. Yes. Okay. Similarly, the whole is only a whole in relation to its parts. They take their meaning from each other, reciprocal arrangement. From this point of view, the past part and whole are related to and dependent on each other. You can't call it a part of a car without knowing that there's a car. You can't have the car without all the parts that make it up. This looks like a mind game, but just get used to it and look into it deeply. There's a lot of texts where you can really do exercises with this presentation. So, likewise, qualities like long and short have a relative sense because we use these terms to describe objects in relation to other objects. There's no long without a short. We don't normally think this way, but you have to start thinking this way about dependency, the key to everything. At another level, phenomena are also called dependent arising because they arise in dependence on their basis of designation, and they are dependent on the mind that designates them. What is he talking about here? They're always talking about the table, so we'll talk about the table. You call it a table because you see certain parts that come together, and we already conventionally agree that, oh, let's call that a table in English. Something else in Italian, tavolo, tabla, and for whatever. But we all decide that this thing that does this type of a function, let's call it a table. That's fine. That's a dependence on its basis and on the mind designating it. The first meaning of dependent arising applies only to conditioned phenomena, those things that are active in the cause and effect relationships, whereas the last two meanings apply to all phenomena, conditioned impermanent phenomena and unconditioned permanent phenomena. In other words, even things like non-obstructive space, even things like emptiness, they are also dependent arisings. You can hold on to that a second. The dependent arising mentioned in this line is the subtlest one, in which it is explained in terms of existing merely by name and designation by thought, the most subtle dependency, a designating consciousness and a name. Designating consciousness picks it out, names it, and subtly you're saying, when you give that a name, you're saying it's everything that's not that. It's that. You're eliminating everything else. That's table. Everything else is non-table. That gets a little sticky to think about, but that's what words do. They point out, they limit. Fine on a certain level, but that's not totally representational reality. Accurate representation, of reality. In other words, when we say that phenomena exist through the power of terms and designation and independence on designation, we are explaining dependent arising as it appears, as mere existence due to the power of name. From the ultimate point of view, that is mere emptiness of inherent existence. We're going to rehash this whole argument again a little more clearly in a few minutes, so just get the frame in your mind, that's all. Don't worry about understanding it totally. It takes a while. I don't, so that's why I'm reading. Anyway, we are talking of emptiness. When we are talking of emptiness, we're talking about something being empty of its object of negation. What is it? Something is empty, something's not there, right? What is it that's not there in these objects? Phenomena are empty of what? They don't have independent existence. Even though they appear that way, they don't have independent existence, inherent existence, existence from their own side. These are all synonyms to the higher school. These are the objects of negation. Independent existence, it's not there. When you look, you will find it. Inherent existence, same thing. Existence from their own side, same thing. Look. We can name it conveniently, separated from things to go about our business. But if we look deeper, can't find it. Funny. Emptiness thus means being empty of these objects of negation. A sticky term. Maybe I'll come up with something slicker in the future. I don't know. Phenomena are empty because they are dependent on the name of thought by which they are designated. If they have any kind of dependency, if they need a name of thought, then they're not inherently existent. So, His Holiness, and this is page 67 if you have the text. Verbatim. When we use the term emptiness, it has some similarity to our usual idea of the absence of something or voidness. But if you think that emptiness is the mere absence of anything, then your understanding is incomplete. We should understand emptiness as the absence of inherent existence. Because they lack inherent existence, phenomena do not have an independent existence. Yet they are existent. They're there. Don't say there's nothing there. So this is the little contradiction here. So this understanding of emptiness can be gained by understanding the meaning of dependent arising, because dependent arising means that phenomena are dependent on something else. If phenomena exist in dependence on something else, this clearly shows that they exist. So it's not they're not there. They exist, it's how they exist. So that's our problem. The way things exist are not the way that we compulsively or instinctively hold on to them. So what's the problem? The problem is that's where afflictions grow. This false view that we have, this actual projection, an active misreading of reality, that causes us to have anger, to have attachment, and all the other wonderful things that follow from it. Rotten moods, the whole bit. So it's very important. This is the key to eliminating suffering for once and for all, not suppressing it, getting rid of it, getting rid of the root of the afflictions, because the afflictions are what makes us suffer. If we have a false view of reality, then we incur these afflictions. One who sees infallible cause and effect, that's one of the lines from me. I don't know how it's described here. Whoever seeing the cause and effect of all phenomena, in His Holiness translates as infallible cause and effect. This verse, I'll read the verse. Whoever seeing the cause of and effect of all phenomena, of cyclic existence and nirvana as infallible, puts infallible last, okay, thoroughly destroys the mode of misapprehension of those objects as inherently existent. This one has entered on a path that is pleasing to the Buddha. Path pleasing to the Buddha. The Buddhas are always pleased, but this is for our benefit to think that way. They're very pleased when we pull ourselves up out of samsara. So, infallible cause and effect. So if you are able to clearly ascertain and assert the infallibility of dependent arising, and if without doing any harm to the understanding, you are able to destroy the perception that things exist inherently. In other words, you don't say they don't exist. You say they don't exist inherently, but they're there because they come about by causes and conditions, by minds designating them in relation to their whole and parts. They can't be solidly dependent. Dependent and independent are perfect dichotomy. You're either one or the other. No excluded middle, whatever you call that. So if so, then you have entered the path that pleases the Buddhas. So these lines explain that although cause and effect functions, it does not function in an inherent way, which is true. The conventional world relies on cause and effect. Cause and effect is made possible by the natural emptiness of things, the lack of inherent existence of things, because if things were inherently existent, they wouldn't be affected by causes. They wouldn't change. They'd be static. There's no such thing. However, impulsively, automatically, that's the way we hold onto things. Not going to work. And so far, it hasn't. It causes us suffering. So, here's on the same topic, in the same verses. Let me see what the time limit is. Can we have some time? Excuse me, I'm getting dry. I really miss you guys, so soon I guess we'll resume regular classwork, we hope. Let's see what happens. Meanwhile, we have to be responsible and not get others sick. So just follow the guidelines, as Nikki mentioned in his video. Cause and effect of all phenomena. He's causing the same line now. Geshe Sonam Rinpoche's commenting now. This is from page 114. You don't have the book. I'll show you the book. This one, very, very useful. Very well written. If you can see it clearly. Excellent. It's a Snowline book, probably now wisdom. He's gone, but the one who translated, Ruth Sonam, she's a nun. She's still around. He was the director of the library, taught for many years in Dharamsala. I never met him, only through his books, which are wonderful, very clearly written. So on this same line, the cause and effect, when you understand that not an atom of true existence can be found anywhere, and that at the same time causes and effects, as well as actions and agents, operate perfectly, you walk on the path which pleases the enlightened one. You have to think about this. There's no true existence, yet cause and effect work fluidly, perfectly. Agents operate perfectly. Actions and agents operate perfectly. You understand this, then you're in the right direction. Selflessness can be established using diverse approaches. But here, Tsongkhapa focuses on the reason of dependence. In other words, you can prove things don't inherently exist or that they are selfless. At the end of the talk, we'll define selfless by different reasons. Here he's using because they depend on things. They depend on causes. They depend on designating consciousness. They depend on the relationship of whole and parts, and on and on. So Tsongkhapa's reason of dependence emphasizes particularly that everything which exists does so in dependence on a basis of attribution and a process of attribution by name and thought. Nothing exists in and of itself independently of these factors. That's tough to understand. But let's go through the explanation. Maybe it'll become clearer. So every basis of attribution, the parts of something, and then we'll name it as a table. On the basis of my mind and body, I designate my name. Someone designates a name. That's it. This is a mere designation, a mere categorization, whatever you want to, convenience, reference, point, all these things. But we don't take it that way. We take it as something hard and solid. I'm here. Can you find the I? His Holiness says, you can't find I. Fine if you don't look for it. It works. And we'll explain this very shortly. So, the fundamental nature of things is a subtle phenomenon, which at this point we are unable to perceive in the way that we perceive visual objects with our eyes. We don't. We have to think about it. We have to reason around it. We have to read different books that give us maybe a little better understanding depending on our receptivity. But a person who has a direct realization of emptiness sees it like you see your hand in front of your face, not through a conceptual medium. Boom, it's there. That's the way it's been explained to me. So, what is dependence and attribution? Everything Buddha taught was intended for practice. He's giving us a little less. The importance of intellectual understanding. I put a little title on this myself. Everything Buddha taught was intended for practice. These are not philosophical arguments, to pass the time, have a nice discussion, a meaningful this. This is a manual of how to go about thinking, how to go about evolving your mind. Everything he said was for that purpose. How to relieve your suffering and then relieve the suffering of others. That's it. So, if you fail to see intellectual understanding as part of practice and seek instructions for a practice elsewhere, then, in the words of the Buddha, something has gone badly awry. You know from experience that both positive and negative inner changes can be brought about by the power of thought. So do not underestimate its positive potential. Thought is very important. There's a whole school of you should sit there and blank out your mind. Very nice, you rest, that's good. You're not getting anywhere. You're not penetrating into the nature of reality. By the way, in terms of attributions, this is Sonram's definition of the mind. The mind is an attribution to a collection of mental functions and moments of mental activity. There are mental functions, there are moments of mental activity. Okay, that's the mind. Look for the mind, you can't find it. So the more closely you examine and think about something which accords with fact, the clearer it becomes. Whereas that which has no basis in reality vanishes. And the example they give is like, oh, look in the distance. There's a guy out there in the fields. Then you look closer with binoculars, or get up close. Oh no, it's only a scarecrow. If it's false, it'll reveal itself the closer you examine it. That's the theory here. And that's an axiom here, actually. Our misconception of the self, which distorts what exists, is the source of our suffering. What really exists, we don't understand it. We distort it. Well, that's the way it is. Someone has to point this out to us because it feels so natural the way we think, the way we look at things, the way we perceive and react to things around us. It's all a misread. Someone has to come along, and that's the Buddhas and the enlightened beings, and say, excuse me, that's not what's really there. And how do they bring you to an understanding? One method is logic. Logic cuts through moods, cuts through prejudices. You may not feel it, but when it's explained to you, wow, that's it. I don't feel it's that way, though. You can't deny the logic, the reasonings. They're very, very powerful. Slowly you get used to them, and slowly what you thought was natural before isn't so natural. You see the holes in your misconception of reality, your false read of reality. So that it gets clearer that if something really is true, it'll get clearer the more you get close to it. Our misconception of the self, which distorts what exists, is the source of our suffering. The more we investigate to see whether the object to which this misconception clings actually exists, the more evident its non-existence becomes. And gradually, the misconception dies away. And this is the process, using analytical understanding, using simple thinking, simple logic, and then taking it to the next level when you have a certainty of the presentation. No, it can't be this way with this, all these reasons. Then you sit on those reasons with a calm, abiding mind. That's a very important point. A calm, abiding mind is not a normal mind. Light, for instance, one of the metaphors they use is that light is very nice, it illuminates, but if you really, really concentrate it and make it a laser, it can cut through steel. The mind is similar. If you calm the mind down, focus it, sit on something, you get deeper and deeper understanding. The combination of an analytical understanding and a calm, abiding mind is called special insight. That's how you go about it. But first, you have to do the basic understanding with a normal mind of what are they talking about here? Where does this fit? Where does that fit? You turn these things over in your mind. And then when you're really, really certain, you start to develop a calm, abiding mind, if you want to go through the, this classic way of doing things. And then these meanings become more and more forceful, and they more and more change your inner mind, make you more and more familiar with the presentation. Calm, abiding mind is not distractive. It has a sustained attention on it, wherever it wants to attend to. It sits there and it's sustained. Not only that, there's a physical attribute. The body is light and blissful. You don't get tired. You want to do it. You read the Lamrim, you get the presentation of how to develop a calm, abiding mind and then combine it with the analytical meditation. So let's talk about attribution. If everything is merely attributed, so why can't you call brass gold and gold brass, or call an ox an elephant or an elephant an ox? Why can't you do that? How come? You said everything's attributed, so from now on, this table is a horse. No, stop it. Excuse me, I have to have espresso. Although everything is attributed, for the process to be authentic, the basis of attribution must be able to perform the function of that which it is attributed to it. In other words, you call it a table because it holds things. You call it a horse because it acts like a horse and does this and that. You just can't name something whatever you want and it changes like that, like a magician. No, that's not. So there are 3 criteria about how you attribute things. So to validly posit something, the object should appear to conventional awareness, or normal conventional awareness, not someone whose eyes are like clouded and sees things, the colors that are not there. Something. It should appear to a conventional awareness, normal, everyday, walking around mind that sees things in a certain way, objectively, actually, not nice. It should not be invalidated by any other valid conventional perception. For instance, someone says, oh yeah, look, let's go over there. There's water, we could fill up our canteens, etc. Then you get close and no, it's a mirage. You got close. Your second conventional awareness invalidated the first one. That's simple. And thirdly, it shouldn't be invalidated by an awareness investigating the ultimate nature of things. Oh, wait a minute. First 2 I get around. Yes, conventional awareness sees it. Another conventional awareness says, yes, it's true. Or no, that's not water. That's a mirage. You can't drink it. It doesn't function as water. Oh, the third one, though, an awareness investigating the ultimate nature of things. So regarding this last point, this is important. For instance, if one designated or attributed an objectively existent table, that's a heavy word, it means something. Objectively existent table means that table is inherently existent. It's just out there with no connection to the mind that sees it, that designated it, or whatever. It's just out there by itself. If one designated an objectively existent table to the basis of designation, this would certainly appear to conventional perception. Oh yeah, I see that. That's the way I see things. And it would not be contradicted by any valid conventional perception. Oh yeah, another guy, that's a table, that's there, it's independent, that's fine. But it would be invalidated by an awareness investigating the ultimate. However, this awareness does not invalidate the mere designation, table, to the 4 legs and flat top of its parts, etc. In other words, the mind looking for the mode of being doesn't have the authority to establish anything conventionally. It's looking at what's there beyond the designated, something's designated. Is there anything else there? Is there anything findable something you could point out to and that's it and nothing else. Only the highest school says there's nothing like that at all. All the other schools say, well, there is something there, something subtle, but it's there. And the higher school says, no. So that awareness is not positing conventional reality. It's showing the mode of being of things. And then go about conventional reality is legitimate. And Geshe Sopa used to say he still says it, I don't know, maybe not. He, in his books, to exist is to exist conventionally, period. So though things have no ultimate or true existence, they do exist conventionally, as we just said, fine, without analyzing. Everything goes about its business nicely. We use the table, we take the bus, we do, fine, We don't worry if the ticket we buy at the train is it's a non-inherent ticket, no. So though things have no ultimate or true existence, they exist conventionally. If anything had ultimate or true existence, it could not depend on any other factors. And it couldn't relate to anything else. It couldn't be in a condition of cause and effect or anything. But since everything depends on its basis of attribution, no thing has objective or true existence. A subtle way of showing that there's no inherent existence. So when a search is made for the object of refutation or negation, for example, an objectively existent table, which is how the table appears to exist, that's the way things look to us. Yeah. It appears it cannot be found. Unfindability here indicates the absence not of the table, but of an objectively existent table. I'm not saying there's no table, but there's no table the way we thought it existed. So who cares? Well, because the way we think things exist causes us trouble. You have to understand their final mode of being to get out of this jail. That's a jail of samsara, which is in our mind. It's not real estate. It's not a place you can leave. As we stated before, places are easy to get away from. But something that's a factor of your own mind, you have to work on it and change it. And all Buddhist schools of philosophy, other than the Prasangika, this is the school that Shantideva, Chandrakirti, Nagarjuna, all these people, the highest level, the most subtle. All these schools other than Prasangika assume some kind of objective existence, which is found when sought. You really, really look, there it is. Oh, it's the atoms. Those are the things. Hey, yeah, that's it. No, the school says no, nothing objective, independent of a designating consciousness. Oh, so for Prasangikas, findability of any kind would imply true or objective existence, which they negate. No such thing. So now regarding the self, I said we'd talk about the self. I'm going to go a little quickly. So it's the most pertinent concern for us, no kidding. When no investigation is made of the self clearly exists. I'm sitting, I'm eating, I'm talking to you, you're listening, maybe you fell asleep, whatever. So there are only two ways in which the self could exist, dependent or independent. Okay? To us it appears to exist entirely from the side of our own body and mind, independent of any process of attribution. But if it existed as it appears, it should be findable when we search for it, either within the body or the mind. Where is this I? Over here, over there? Or as something separate from these two. I is over here, the body and mind are over there. I don't think so, but let's scope it out. So it should become more apparent the closer we look. If the self were the body, it would cease when the body ceased. Now we know the self goes on and on in different lives. Just as there are many parts to the body, there should be many cells. The simple logic that we always use here. Furthermore, it would be impossible to say my body, which expresses a relationship of controller and controlled. Just as this master is not the servant, the self is not the body. My body. Well, then the self isn't the body because there's a separateness there. My body, right? Yeah, that's mine. So, yet the self is not entirely apart from the body either. If it were, it would be impossible to speak of my body. So there's a relationship there. They're pointing out that our way of thinking doesn't fit with the way things are. For instance, these simple things, a horse and a cow are different entities. When the horse is sick, you can't say the cow is sick, right? But when your body is sick, you say, I'm sick. When it's healthy, you say, oh, I'm well. The self and the body are thus in a dependent relationship. They are in a dependent relationship. If the self were the mind or consciousness, since the self appears to exist independently without relying on other factors, consciousness should also exist independently. He went through the body, now he's going through the mind factor. However, consciousness cannot arise without an object. It's dependent. It has to have an object to be designated. Pleasurable and unpleasurable states of mind depend on attractive and unattractive objects. A single moment of mentation depends on many causes and conditions. For instance, a single moment of visual awareness depends on the presence of a visual form, the eye sense faculty, the space between the two, and a preceding moment of awareness. All these are dependencies. Well, but my mind is here. No. They're trying to break this mold that we have, this prison that we're in of thinking a certain way. As in the case of the body, the fact that we say my mind is an indication that the self and mind are not identical. Yet, no self can be found distinct from the mind. Not identical because we say my mind. This immediately implies a sort of separation there. But is there a self without the mind? No. No self can be found distinct from the mind. When we experience anxiety and mental tension, and we got a lot of that these days, we say, I'm unhappy. When we are in a positive, joyful state, we say, I'm happy. Oh. So does the self exist? Answer in a while, no. Yes, but not the way we perceive it. That's all. Yes, it exists, but not the way we think it does. Why does it appear to exist but cannot be found when we search for it? Why? Because it's false. It appears to be what it is not, and exists in a way which it does not accord with how it appears. It appears a certain way, we look for it, we can't find it. That's not the way it is. That's not its mode of being. Yet owing to our confusion and imprints of ignorance, we assume that it exists as it appears. There's the cause of trouble. So regarding the use of the term self, Chandrakirti said, what is meant by selflessness and self? Here, self is an inherent nature of phenomena, that is, a non-dependence on another. The non-existence of this is selflessness. The self is clearly dependent on parts, causes, conditions, its basis of attribution, and thus has no inherent existence. Identifying the object to which the misconception of self adheres is of supreme importance because to us it appears to exist as something independent and not merely attributed to body and mind, and that's the cause of trouble. That's the fort we're defending that doesn't exist the way we think it does. So, regarding the I, very simple presentation. It's important. So, when someone calls your name, you respond by thinking, oh, he's calling me. Harry, oh yeah, yes. So, the I which appears to your mind at that moment is your validly existent self. That's legit, that's fine. You can't say, no, I'm not here. No, that's bad. But if that person accuses you of theft and you're innocent, you will feel defensive and self-righteous, and your I will swell in size, appearing much larger than when your name was called. It will seem quite independent of any other factors. In normal situations, that's the false I. In normal situations, the appearance of the fabricated self is difficult to identify, but in situations of crisis, it pops up vividly. That's why you have to have all these reasons loaded in, so when this appears, wait, it can't be that way. The more familiar you are with these reasons, the more they'll suddenly, instinctively come up when these incidents occur. So, the nominally attributed self exists as a mere attribution and a mere appearance, and when no investigation is made, it functions satisfactorily. Fine. I go to school, I do this, I do that. The appearance of a truly existent self exists. The appearance exists. The self which seems inherently existent to the misconception also exists and seems inherent. What does not exist is a truly or inherently existent self. So when you start to realize the absence of that self, you've begun to find the correct view, and again, walk on the path that pleases the Buddhists. So that's it for now. We'll have to conclude with the prayers. You can question, send in questions to the Facebook page or the website, or you can email me or whatever you wish. We're also thinking of doing a conversation via Zoom, but we have to set that up. It's not hard, but we need time to set that up. That's all. That would be like where you can air out your opinions, views, etc. We'll start maybe first with the New Jersey people, since they seem to be a more intimate group and a more a solid group. Whereas, and then we'll move to an open thing. We'll see. We'll play with the idea. So, long life prayer for Chapje Chongla Rinpoche, pervasive Lord, Chapje Chongla Rinpoche, without whom no center, nothing. So, amazing. Om Svasti, fully permeated with countless sun rays of love and joy, wearing a black knot, top knot adorned with heaps of coral. O Lord, granting all wishes for longevity, bestow upon the glorious three secrets the festivity of immortality. To the Lord of speech, victorious Tsongkhapa Nawang Losang, possessor of the teachings and realizations comprising the countless rays of doctrine Shedrup Tempe, great lamp skilled in illuminating the space-like minds of beings, Ronmei, we make supplications. Enriched with the treasures of both Sutra and Tantra, ruling over the world of four tenets, by means of the golden wheel of two wisdoms, may you remain firmly as a peerless scholar, clad in the saffron robes of conscientiousness, saturated with the essence of pure morality, sublime foundation of higher birth and definite goodness. May you remain firmly as a second Upali whose ethics are supreme. Skilled in emitting 100,000 cool rays of loving kindness to the miserable mother sentient beings, tortured by the scorching heat of the vast variety of sufferings, may you remain firmly moon-like and all-embracing. Like Asanga in teaching the systems of Sutra and Tantra, like Shamendra in spreading garlands of poetry, like Dignaga in destroying all holders of perverted views, may you remain firmly for hundreds of eons as the glory of the doctrine and of all migrators. By the sublime blessings of the truth of the triple gem, and by the force of the infallibility of dependent arising, may the fruit of our prayers be spontaneously and effortlessly fulfilled. 8 verses for training the mind. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings, who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings, and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others, out of jealousy, treat me badly with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I had benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. I realize tonight is very heavy, a lot of information in a hurry. We're going to go over it again next week from a different angle, because it's very, very important. And it's the most important doctrine of Buddhism. It makes it unique from all the other religions, their final view of what reality is. So, in the meantime, stay safe, be happy as best you can, and help others as best as you can. People need a lot of help now. Thank you very much. See you Saturday for Tara at 1 o'clock. Thank you.